Right, welcome people, welcome to my post-show report and post-fight report for Terence Crawford versus Crawford-Madrimov. I'm quickly going to run through the undercard because this was a big, really exciting show. There's a few fights and a few big things and big moments to talk about on there. And then obviously I'll get onto the main talking point, which is this fight. And I want to say, or I shouldn't say, the controversy around it, which I don't really understand. But yeah, there's a lot of talking points when it comes to the scorecards and just what happened throughout the fight in this one. A lot of it that I don't agree with, but we're going to jump in, we're going to discuss it, I'm going to give my take on it, and then you guys can come back in the comment section as always and either argue with me or agree with me. But yeah, as I said, that's going to be the main talking point. I'll move on to this fight in a minute, but I quickly want to run through the undercard because there were some exciting good things on there to talk about. We knew that going into this, it wasn't just about the main event with this one. This was a whole stacked show from top to bottom, a show we was all excited about and talking about all the fights all week. So it's only right that I discuss the undercard too before we get on to this main talking point. So yeah, the first thing I want to talk about, Andy Cruz, one of the best prospects in boxing, only in his fourth fight, KOs Antonio Moran, but he actually had a little bit of a test here. The guy was throwing quite a bit back. He got stunned a couple times, but he got the stoppage in round 7, and he's still one of the best prospects in boxing without doubt. And he pointed straight at Shakur Stevenson afterwards and said, I want that fight soon. He said he wants to be world champion within 7-8 fights. I would hold him back a little bit now. Looking at his first 3 fights, I thought, shit, he's cruising this already. He could probably go into a world title fight now. Looking at this one, he did struggle a little bit. I don't really rate his strength and solidness at the top world level yet if you put him in with the likes of Gervonta Davis or someone like that. So I think he's got to work on his strength and conditioning, have a few more fights. Then within 10 fights, he'll definitely be ready for a world title because he's got all the talent and ability. It's just about working on that physicality now. So yeah, that's that one done. On to the next prospect on the card, David Morrell, another Cuban, a guy who's looked brilliant in the first 10 fights of his career. Actually had a bit of a lackadaisical, unimpressive performance, if I'm honest. I don't think guys seeing him for the first time here, and this was his first fight on a massive show, or being higher up on the card where a lot more people would be tuning in for it. I don't think he stole, well, he definitely didn't steal the show, and I don't think he done enough here for fans to really remember him. It was probably the most forgettable fight on the card out of the main like 6 at the top anyway, the proper televised ones. Yeah, he was in there with Kaladzic, a guy who's been at world level but fell short at world level, got stopped by Beterbiev in 5 rounds. Morrell, the fight just didn't really get going. Kaladzic is awkward, and Morrell did win most of the rounds. I had it 118, 110. I think 2 of the judges had it 117, 111, and one had it 118, 110, the same as me. So he won wide. It just really wasn't impressive at all. It was a bit boring, if I'm honest. I don't say that about many fights, but neither guy really did anything to excite the fans in this one. But Morrell is still a good prospect. Everybody has an off performance here and there. We'll talk about that in the main event. If people believe that was an off performance from Crawford. Shakur Stevenson had one recently. He's one of the best fighters on the planet. You won't find a fighter that hasn't had an off performance at one point in their career, unless we're talking about someone like Alexander Usyk or someone like that. But it is rare that you don't have an off performance at any night throughout your career. So I'm sure David Morrell will go back to the gym, work on this and be more exciting again in his next fight because he is an exciting prospect. And it was his first fight up at light heavyweight, so that might have played a factor too. Right, now, on to the more exciting things now. And this one, man, this was the most exciting thing on the card without doubt. Jared Anderson versus Martin Bakole. I said in my prediction video for this, Martin Bakole's going to get the win. Martin Bakole's going to stop him. Martin Bakole is the dark horse of the heavyweight division. And every single thing I said about this fight came true. The only thing I did say was that I doubted how much Jared Anderson would really want it once Martin Bakole takes him to them deep waters. To be fair to him, although there are doubts about him mentally, in this fight here, he showed a lot of heart because he was getting battered by Martin Bakole from the beginning. And Martin Bakole is one of the strongest, most horrible heavyweights to fight at any point. But if he rocks you and drops you in the first round, which he did with an absolutely brutal but beautiful uppercut in that first round against Anderson, then you are in deep, deep waters from the beginning. And Jared Anderson gave it everything he had. So I want to take back what I said about his heart, because this guy really does have a lot of heart. So what I said in the prediction video about having doubts about that, he's got rid of them doubts now, for me anyway. But levels were shown here. And although Jared Anderson may look like the slicker boxer, he did come into this, which is why a lot of people were picking him. A lot of people knew Bakole is a motherfucking beast. He's a bad boy. And man, I just tell you to go and watch the highlights of this fight, man. He was just, everything Anderson threw, he was just shrugging off. Obviously, he outweighed him by a lot, but he just has this freakish strength and freakish like ability just to flick punches out, but really, really hurt you. His uppercut was brilliant. He was popping him with a jab. He was throwing up 3 right hands in a row and landing them. And Jared Anderson boxed well, or tried to box well, threw a lot of shots back. But as I said, nothing was having an effect on Bakole at all. And now for him, he got him out of there in round 5 pretty early. Dropped him, as I said, in round 1 with an uppercut. Dropped him twice in round 5 and then stopped him on his feet as he was absolutely battering him around the ring and battering on the ropes in round 5. The ref jumped in. Anderson, go back to the gym, have a while out now. Look how much you really want this sport, because he has said he doesn't really enjoy it in the past. But this might light a fire in him now and think he's got to come back and prove himself. And on the mic afterwards, he was handling it well and said he would be back. He's only 24. He's got time. He could have 6 months out, really work on himself, come back and easily rebuild again. He's got another few years till he's even in his prime. He could have another 10, 12, 13 years as a top heavyweight if he really does enjoy the sport. Martin Bakole now, though, it is so exciting, man. I still think he's going to be avoided, because he could still be in the Who Needs Him club. Jared Anderson is a good win, but it's not a massive win, but it's a massive performance. He wants the Michael Hunter rematch, he said. I'd love to see him in with Jarrell Miller. Obviously, Miller and Ruiz had a draw. We'll go on to talk about that in a minute. But I think Jarrell Miller comes out of that fight looking more impressive. A lot of people thought he won it. I think Miller versus Bakole, both looking good on this card. It makes sense to put them in with each other next, and they're both just 2 massive fucking units that come forward and try and maul their opponents. So that could only be an all-time great epic fucking fight in terms of action and entertainment and slugfest. If not, Zhilei Zhang, a lot of people are talking about that one. Another fight between 2 units would be brilliant. And I think he needs to get a win, another big win like that, big performance like that. Then I think the likes of Fury, Usyk, Joshua will start being asked to fight him a bit more. At the minute, I think he's going to have to do a bit more to get on those guys' radar and for the fans to really call for it. Us hardcore boxing fans will, but the casuals, I think he needs a bigger win over, like I said, the likes of Miller, Zhang, someone like that. Who else did I say? I forgot now. Michael Hunter rematch, that's more of a personal one for him, because obviously he had a loss to Michael Hunter 6 years ago and believes there were circumstances in that fight that caused the loss. And I do think he'd smash the shit out of Michael Hunter now. So yeah, exciting times for Martin Bakole. The dark horse of the division is finally getting the attention and credit he deserves. The next heavyweight fight on the card, Andy Ruiz versus Jarrell Miller. It was a good scrap, a bit slower than the Anderson versus Bakole fight. I expected that. They're both obviously always overweight, but both looked in good shape coming into this. I actually had it a draw. I know a lot of people had Miller winning. If anyone was going to get the decision, I do believe Miller. He outworked to put a bit more effort in, but I just think Ruiz nicked a few rounds with his boxing skills in the later rounds where Miller was really putting it on him. Ruiz was boxing really well early, but his fitness just fell off. He's never been the fittest fighter at the best of times, has he? But with 2 years out of the ring and only 2 fights in 5 years, it was expected. And Miller actually looked really good here. It's the best I've seen him look in his whole career. The best shape he's been in for a while. He really wanted this one, man. He looked a lot better than he did against Dubois. Obviously, he took the Dubois fight at short notice and said he didn't really have a training camp. He, like I said, to try and get that Bakole fight, try and get the Dubois rematch maybe. Just try and get in there with another top heavyweight and keep working towards it. But I do think he has a limit. Andy Ruiz now, I think looking at this fight, he was fucked in those last few rounds. He showed heart as always, but I think he's going to become more of a gatekeeper in the heavyweight division. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing him versus Chisora or something like that. Chisora wants that Saudi money. Ruiz will want a fight that is more winnable now. Turkey likes both of them guys by the looks of it. Turkey Al-Sheikh, Uncle Turkey as they call him. He could give us that fight, and I'm sure fans would tune in for that, either as a main event or a cheap support or undercard fight on another one of these huge shows. So yeah, that's that. Last but not least on the undercard, Pitbull Cruz versus Jose Valenzuela. Jose Valenzuela got the decision. I had it 115-113 to Jose Valenzuela. Obviously, he was the underdog going into this. Boxed very well. Wasn't the best fight, if I'm honest. Wasn't the explosive war he was expecting. Pitbull Cruz looked a bit limited here. But I think it was Valenzuela's boxing skills and him boxing in a way that us as fans weren't expecting. And Pitbull Cruz and his team probably weren't expecting. He really just slowed the fight down and picked Pitbull Cruz off. A lot of people had it wide to Valenzuela. I thought it was a bit closer than that, but he did deserve the decision. All right, that's the undercard done. We'll leave that there. Now, the main talking point, the thing that everyone's talking about after this fight now, and obviously it was the main event, so it was always going to be, but not for the reasons we thought. We thought it was going to be a really exciting, explosive fight. A lot of people thought Crawford was going to dominate. It didn't turn out like that. We'll go on to the scorecards in a minute. We'll talk a bit about the fight first. It was quite a slow-paced fight, really. Madrimov was really standoffish. He's usually a guy that comes forward and looks to maul his opponents, but he was really standoffish, probably because he was a bit wary and way too respectful of Crawford going into the fight. He was like, it's an honour to share the ring with him. He's one of my favourite fighters. He's the best fighter on the planet. Even if you believe that, you can't be having that in your head and speaking that into existence going into the fight, because it did make him look way too respectful in the early rounds against Crawford, when he's usually a guy that jumps on people. Terence Crawford has been a slow starter throughout his career a lot anyway. He was quite slow building into this and didn't really ever try and dog Madrimov until the later rounds. He looked like he felt the power and the size and the strength of Madrimov a little bit early. And I'm never going to say Terence Crawford is scared or wary of his opponent, but he was definitely cautious here, which is something we haven't seen from Bud at any point throughout his career. Usually he can be the bully in there, but he just couldn't here, and it was a bit of a standoffish fight all night up into the last few rounds, where Madrimov started to throw more big right hands and try and jump in a bit more, and Crawford really upped the work rate. Yeah, let's talk about the scorecards, because that is the main talking point here. Now, there wasn't a lot of excitement in the fight. I'm not going to say it was a bad fight, but it wasn't a good fight either. It was one for the boxing purists. It was a standoff chess match, but I was intrigued the whole way through to look at what they were doing, trying to outsmart each other. But it wasn't the explosive war we was expecting it to be. Well, I had this 116-112 to Terence Crawford. I think that's a fair scorecard. The judges had it 116-112 to Crawford and 115-113 twice. And I can't have any complaints with that at all. I actually think the 115-113s are a little bit close. And I think if you look online, speak to about 75% of fans, they'll agree with that. It was a close, competitive fight, but rounds-wise, Crawford clearly won. He outworked Madrimov. He outlanded Madrimov. He picked Madrimov off. Madrimov just wasn't busy and wasn't throwing anywhere near enough punches in probably about 8 out of the 12 rounds. Crawford landed the bigger, better shots. He went to the body more. He landed the jab more. I just don't see how you can have Israel Madrimov winning this fight. But in the comments, and Mr. Eddie Hearn chatting way more shit than usual here. I lost a bit of respect for him the way he was banging on after this. Really disrespecting Bud, saying that old bullshit cliche that everyone says that Madrimov's the champion, so Crawford needed to do more than Madrimov to take the belt off the champ. That is absolute bullshit, and that is what people say when they're a fan of the champion and he loses a close fight. When you get in that ring, whether you're the champion or the challenger, you've just got to win the fight. Whether you win by 1 point or 5 points or 7 rounds to 5 or 9 rounds to 3 or 12 rounds to 0, a win is a win. You don't get extra advantages. You don't start a round ahead. You don't start 10 punches ahead in a round because you're a champion. You've got to win it, whether it's really close or really wide. So that old take the belt off the champion, you've got to do more bullshit. Get rid of that excuse straight away. So, yeah, looking through the comments and stuff like that, I'd say about 25% of people, 25% of fans, for some reason, I don't know what fight they were watching, or maybe they're Bud haters, they're Spence fans. I think a lot of them are. A lot of them are Spence fans that are still hurt that Crawford beat the shit out of their guy. So now they're looking for any excuse moving forward to slag Terence Crawford off and try and bring him down and try and obviously discredit him. It's not going to work though, because the real ones know, the real boxing fans know. This definitely was not a robbery. It weren't even a controversial decision. It weren't really that close of a fight. It was competitive, but as I said, on the scorecards, I could see Bud winning 9 or 10 rounds out of the 12, if I'm honest. The closest I could have had it was 7 rounds to 5 for Bud. I can't see a draw. I can't see a Madrimov win in any way, even if it was close on rounds. Looking at it though, as a performance-wise, as I said, Crawford definitely looked more cautious than usual. He definitely looked like he was a bit more, I don't want to say wary, but just a bit too cautious at this weight. Maybe he was struggling with the extra weight, didn't feel as sharp, even though when he did let his hands go, he did look super sharp. Maybe he was just a bit worried about the size, the strength and the power of Madrimov. Maybe he felt something that we didn't really see early. Maybe a couple of them right hands that did land early shook him a little bit. Maybe the size, you know how Lomachenko struggled with Teofimo Lopez in the first half of their fight. Maybe it was a bit like that. And obviously now he's talking about taking on Canelo next at 168 pounds. If I'm honest, I don't think he'd win that fight. I think he'd be carrying too much weight. I think Canelo would be obviously much stronger than Madrimov. If he jumps on Crawford, then Crawford's really got to struggle. But that being said, what else has Bud got to do now? There is Jaron Ennis at the weight below. I would love to see that. But he's achieved everything at welterweight. He's champion now at this weight. He could go for undisputed again, or he could just think, fuck it. It's a win-win situation for me. I'll get paid about fucking 80 mil, maybe even more, maybe up to like 100 mil with Turkey Al-Sheikh promoting the fight in Vegas or in Saudi. If I lose the fight, I've lost to a guy that's 2 weights above me and 6 weights above where I started my career at. But if I win the fight somehow, then I go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time. It's the greatest win of this era, one of the greatest wins, the greatest performances it'll be of all time. And he goes, as I said, he'll just be remembered for that moment for the rest of his career. The Spence fight will be massive. This will be fucking monumental in the history of boxing and will never be forgotten if he did manage to put it off. And that being said, I said about Canelo's strength and his power compared to Madrimov. But size-wise, he's actually an inch shorter than Crawford and Madrimov. He's a much slower fighter now, pace-wise, than Madrimov is. Madrimov's more explosive with his feet, more explosive, jumping in, works at a higher work rate usually. Canelo stands there and waits for you a bit more. So Crawford could just get busy on him and try and pick him off and do like a Mayweather-esque performance like Mayweather did to a younger Canelo. But obviously it is risky. It would be very hard. I would make Canelo the favourite in that one. But go for greatness, man. I always back fighters doing that, and I would love to see it. But yeah, we'll see where they both go next. Crawford just needs to ignore the hate from the hating-ass fans. You're always going to get it. They always look to bring people like Crawford down. But he don't buy into that bullshit. He knows he won the fight. We know he won the fight. Eddie Hearn's just obviously spatting shit, trying to get his guy's name out. There's still Madrimov. No disrespect to him. Madrimov boxed well, but he froze in the early rounds. And he didn't do enough in the later rounds to bring it back, in my opinion. Over to you guys now. Let me know your thoughts. Who stood out the most for you on the undercard? Where do you want to see them guys go next? Or just jump straight into the main talking point here. How did you score the fight? Do you believe Madrimov was robbed? Or do you believe Crawford won it? And how do you think Crawford would get on with Canelo after watching this fight? And where do you want to see him go next? Thank you for watching, people. It's been a long one. Thank you for staying tuned. If you're still here at the end of this video, and if you are, please like and subscribe. Thank you.